or get out the way. No suit for you, Mr. Curry. Oh! The finisher. Oh, my goodness.
With the Lowry market and injury, which we've talked about on this show, some changes. You'll see more of Portis. You shift maybe Parker some over to the 4, which is going to open up some space in the depth chart for a couple of players here, Smith.
Yeah, I think one is Denzel Valentine. He'll get a chance to play more at that 3 spot. I think also Hutchinson is a kid, a rookie, will get a chance to play more minutes now without marketing. You know, and Bobby Portis has always been solid for me. Question mark for me is I want to see if Cameron Payne, the backup point guard position, this is a year for him. Can he show what he showed in college and where he was drafted with OKC?
You know, we know at the forefront of the depth chart from the point guard position is Chris Dunn. And we talked about this with Coach Hoiberg, Booz. This was such a huge year for him last year, that terrible fall, which necessitated him to miss a few weeks. But he started to shoot we knew he could defend. He was one of the best defenders in college coming out. But he started to shoot the ball a little bit and get some confidence as the year went on.
Yeah, he played great down the stretch of the season. Made some great plays, hit some big shots, showed that he can start at that point guard position. I think he's going to have a great breakout year this year. And also, I'm interested to see the kid Holiday play. I liked what I saw at Summer League, and as we talk about the depth chart, he can help out that position a lot.
You know, the thing with Dunn, too, was when you talk about his first year with the team, he never got to play. He was never getting opportunity because Tibbs wasn't going to go to him as a younger player. So he really kind of was a year behind, even though he was already a year in the league. I don't think people really give credit to that.
And the question marks was, can he shoot the basketball? We didn't know in Minnesota because we just saw him in college. He didn't shoot it well, but in Chicago, his jump shot was nice. And then was he a point guard that could run the show? And I think that he answered that question for me as well. Did a nice job of getting guys shots. And then at the end, he made some big plays, whether it was dropping it off, scoring. He looked like the guy we saw in college in a comfortable role. And unfortunate for him is, when a guy doesn't play, you automatically say, well, he's not that good. But he just didn't get a chance to play under Tibbs.
All right, now down here in Atlanta, when the Braves had all those pitching years, when Maddox was there, you might forget Glavine or Smoltz for a second. And with Bagley, with Duke, I think some people kind of forgot about Wendell Carter Jr. Maybe didn't get to see the extent, Booz, of what he can bring to the table. What we're going to see it now with the Bulls.
Yeah, at Duke, there were so many great players, so many Hall of Famers or whatever that played in college. Here on this team, he's going to be able to show his defensive prowess, protect the rim, rebound the ball, get out in transition. He can shoot a little bit. He'll have an opportunity to show more what he can do at the NBA level.
Yeah, when you talk about him and his instincts, which is something Coach Hoiberg said earlier in the show, but it's not only defensively, he's got an offensive game too.
No, Casey, for me is, I've had advantage. He's from Atlanta, watched him since he's in 8th grade. He's always been that big guy, and obviously he's played the center spot position. Got to Duke, he was still kind of the center spot. You had Bagley at the 4, but in Summer League, we got a chance to see his offense where he can stretch it out to about 17, 18 feet. We got a chance to put it on the floor, make some plays. He is so solid, and his basketball film IQ is off the charts for a guy that young.
All right, now, speaking of young, Denzel, that's your guy.
That's my guy.
So we know it's in there, and we saw him play some good minutes last year. I know he's a little banged up now, but he's going to get an opportunity to get some expanded minutes. What does he have to do? What's the message to him?
I think for him is being able to be effective without the basketball. He's so good making plays and getting guys open, but when he doesn't have it, like when a Dunn has it and a Zach LaVine, can you knock down shots and make shots? And he's worked on that. I think he's going to be good. And then there's opportunity. Sometimes when you're a guy in college, you can play 40 minutes. When you're in a team like this in the NBA, sometimes that 15-minute span, you got to be real good in limited minutes, and I think he's going to be good this year.
You know, one of the things we didn't talk about is we were talking about it actually during the course of the break, and that is Robin Lopez.
Right.
And just as somebody who played with toughness and attitude, how much do you admire? I mean, look, this isn't a guy with a world of talent, but he's maximizing everything he's had and really has improved as the career has gone.
No, he's very gritty. Plays tough inside the paint, rebounds the ball, defends the ball, doesn't like mascots too much. We talked about that a little bit. But he's a tough guy. He's going to help that young group out as well.
And Portis is another guy who we shouldn't take for granted and will get more minutes now at the 4 with the market.
I've been loving Bobby Portis because he can go out there and shoot that 3, but he's also a guy that's grimy down here on the box, and toughness is there. You can post him up. And I think for him is he's been used to being featured. Same thing with Denzel. Can you be productive in small doses of minutes? But talent-wise, I love him. And I love that Robin Lopez, he can shoot that basketball around the elbow. He's not bad. They have a lot of guys that can play, especially in front court.
You know, you sit there and you look at this rotation and go through it, and I think the fans probably saying the same thing. This is a nice team.
It is.
It is.
You start to look at this core,
It is.
right? When you want to see direction, you want to see that incline boost. There's a lot to like with this roster.
Yeah, Paxton's done a great job. Those guys done a good job drafting the right way, getting the right guys in town. That Jimmy Butler trade, as you see, is paid dividends for this team. And they're going to have a chance this year to make some noise. We'll see if they can creep into that 7th, 8th spot, maybe, especially when they get Markkanen back. So we'll see what happens.
Is it important, Smitty, whether they make the playoffs or not, to play those important games, those
Yes.
games that matter down the stretch, that learning experience, that first time where the last 3 weeks of the season you're not 1, 2, 3 Cancun, but you're trying to get into that 8th spot?
Yeah, you don't want to have that truck, that beep truck coming and packing your stuff before April. You know, you want to have those games where, you know, you're within 5 or 6 games and you're battling with another team of a possibility of making it in the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. I don't have them in the playoffs, but I would love to see they just increase some of their wins and be playing meaningful games like you said in February.
We'll see how much
March,
of an
April.
increase there is. We play some more or less later. These two guys will look into the crystal ball, tell you how many wins these Bulls are going to get. We know this much. There's certainly a lot of personality on the team. We'll go social style, and the starters weigh in on Chicago. I don't know if it's karma. If you throw shade, what gets thrown back at you? Lauri Markkanen on the Butler trade
That
request.
was Throwback Thursday, that's all.
Hello, TBT.
And then he got injured.
It was just Throwback Thursday.
Nope. Just not a
Nice suit,
coincidence.
young fella.
Question is, will we pick at that tweet whether or not the Bulls are a lottery pick? The starters break it down.
Skeets and Lee here from the starters with your next point about the Chicago Bulls. A true or false question. Lee, true or false? The Bulls are headed back to the draft lottery.
I say true right now, yes. I like a couple of their young pieces, particularly Lauri Markkanen. I think he's a very good player. They obviously signed Zach LaVine to that huge deal, and they got Jabari Parker to come over from the Milwaukee
That
Bucks.
looks good. That looks solid in the
So
East.
they can score. They can score. My problem is they just can't defend well enough, I
Right.
don't think. But particularly Jabari Parker. I mean, he's very good on the offensive end, but defensively he struggled against the Celtics in the playoffs last year. So I think the Bulls are probably going to score a lot, but I think they're going to be outscored a lot as well.
That's fair, but they brought in what looks to be a really strong defensive-minded forward in the draft in Wendell Carter Jr.
Rookie.
I mean, rookie, I get it. You're
Yeah.
asking a lot from a rookie
Yes.
to be maybe your best defensive player.
Yeah.
But he should help
Oh,
on
absolutely.
that side of the ball.
I mean, absolutely he should help. Anything really should help for Chicago
Yeah.
because they're just not a great defensive team.
If they get off to a slow start, is Fred Hoiberg, is he on the hot seat? Could he be one of the first coaches possibly fired if they come out of the gates really slow here?
Well, it depends on what the expectations are, I guess, from the front office there. I mean, if they think the Bulls should be doing well and they're not, then yes, he is. But if they're sort of looking at this as another season of development, then I think Fred Hoiberg probably should see it out. It's been a pretty crazy time for him there
Right.
in Chicago. So I would like to see him get a chance now with a whole new, fresh group of guys and to try to implement his system. But, of course, in this league, if you're not winning, fans get upset. The coach is always the first one to go.
Yeah, I think it's in play. Let's hear from you guys, though. Where do you think about the Bulls? Are they going back to the draft lottery, or do they sneak into the playoffs? Hit us up on Twitter at #TheStarters.
All right, guys, great question. So much so, we'll ask it to our guys. So true or false, the Bulls are going to be in the lottery again?
I think true. I mean, I think this team is very talented. They have some pieces, some young guys, but I still looking at Eastern Conference. Even without the Cleveland Cavaliers, I still have some teams above them, and I don't have them making the playoffs. But they should be scratching the surface and playing for meaningful games. But I say they go back to the lottery.
I agree. They should be fighting. This is true. They should be fighting for the playoff spot. There's a couple teams, Detroit, Miami, Indiana, Milwaukee, bottom 4 of the Eastern Conference. So I still see Chicago in the lottery.
The teams you mentioned have experience, something they might get in some meaningful games down the stretch. But how many games can they win? We will predict that, break it down, put the finishing touches on the team preview of your Chicago Bulls coming up on the other side. It may be a bit unfair to look at recent history because they're a team that has retooled, especially since that big trade, but that was their least amount of wins because it is a franchise, Booze, as you know, that's used to winning a lot of games. Last year, they missed 2 of 3 in the Fred Hoiberg season. So 30.5 is the number for our win total. Smitty, are we going more or are we going less?
I'm going more. I mean, look at it. Zach LaVine missed a lot of games last year. Chris Dunn. They add Jabari Parker, and yes, Lauri Markkanen will be out, but it's only 6 to 8 weeks, so I think it'll be 34, 35, 36 wins, so I'm going north of 30.5.
Yeah, I agree, and exactly for the same reasons that Smitty just said. You got LaVine coming back for a healthy year. You got Dunn coming back. You got a new Jabari Parker with something to prove. Lowry will be back at some point. So I got them winning about 33, 34 points. Just missing the playoffs by a few games, but making a lot of progress.
Which is important. We talked about earlier in the show. Just to be clear, if Markkanen was healthy, would you have had them as a playoff team, or you don't think that's a determining factor necessarily of playoffs or not playoffs?
You know, I would probably give them a couple more wins, and that's no slight on Markkanen or the Chicago Bulls. I just think we talked about earlier, they don't have those veterans that are experienced right now to get over the hump. But if you're the Chicago Bulls organization, hey, you got to believe in yourself. And it's not that hard if you start looking at 8th place. You could knock off some of those teams that might have a couple injuries.
And we talk about core players. A lot of teams still looking for one. They're done. You got Levine, you got Markkanen, and now maybe Wendell Carter.
They're sitting pretty for the future, though.
They're on their way.
They're on their way.
They're ready.
We feel good about this.
Yeah. I feel good about the Bulls.
For the season, you could follow all
I'll
the
buy the
coverage
stock.
of your Chicago Bulls right here on NBA TV.